When Ben arrived at Jason's place, he stood at the door for a moment, taking in the sight before him. Jason opened it, standing there in nothing but a pair of sweat-gray pants. His bare feet were planted firmly on the ground, and as Ben's eyes scanned up, he couldn't help but notice the way Jason's muscles rippled under his skin, his chest broad, his arms defined, and his abs visible even in the relaxed stance. He looked effortlessly strong, the sort of physical presence that exuded confidence without needing to try. Jason's bare feet were a small detail, but they added to the casual, grounded vibe he gave off. There was no pretension about him, no need to impress. He just was, and it was clear that his physicality wasn't something he had to flaunt to make an impression. The muscles were just a part of him, an expression of the work and discipline he put into his life. But in that moment, they didn't define him. His relaxed, unbothered energy did. Ben couldn't help but feel a little taken aback by the sheer presence Jason had. It was impossible to ignore, but there was no intimidation in Jason's expression. He smiled, genuinely welcoming, as if to say, "Come in, it's just a movie night." "Hey man, good to see you," Jason greeted, his voice deep but relaxed. He stepped aside to let Ben in, the warmth of his presence filling the doorway. "Glad you could make it. Got the snacks ready?" Ben felt a smile tug at the corner of his lips, the weight of his earlier thoughts easing a little. "Yeah, I've got the goods." He motioned to the bag of chips in his hand, feeling a little self-conscious at first. He wasn't sure why, but being in the presence of someone like Jason made him feel both at ease and, strangely, a bit aware of his own physicality. Jason's expression softened. "Good, we'll need them." He chuckled lightly and motioned for Ben to follow him inside. "Come on, I've got a movie queued up. Just make yourself at home." Ben nodded and stepped in, feeling a sense of ease now that he was inside. Jason's home was simple, cozy, with dim lighting that gave off an inviting, calm atmosphere. It was easy to imagine how he liked to unwind here after a long day. Jason led him over to the couch, and without missing a beat, they settled in. The movie began, but neither of them felt the need to rush into conversation. Jason's presence was all the conversation Ben needed, and it was in that comfortable silence where Ben felt his mind start to settle. As the movie played on, the soft glow of the TV screen lit the room, casting shadows around the space. Jason, who had been sitting with his feet up on the coffee table, slowly shifted into a more relaxed position. His eyelids grew heavy, and despite trying to stay focused on the movie, it was clear he was on the verge of falling asleep. His strong frame was slouched back against the couch, one arm stretched across the top of it, and his breathing grew more steady, calm. Ben glanced over at him, still eating a few chips and trying to keep his attention on the movie. But as he turned his gaze toward Jason, he couldn't help but notice something that made his eyes linger for a moment longer. Jason's sweatpants, which had already hung loosely on his muscular form, now seemed to fit a little more snugly as he relaxed, and Ben's eyes accidentally caught the outline of a large bulge in the fabric. Ben immediately looked away, feeling a flush creep up his neck. He hadn't meant to stare, but for a moment he couldn't deny that the way Jason's body was positioned, relaxed, vulnerable in sleep, had unintentionally drawn his attention. Ben shifted uncomfortably on the couch, feeling a mix of curiosity and embarrassment. He tried to focus back on the movie, but the image of Jason, calm and strong in his sleep, kept lingering in his mind. It was strange seeing someone so physically imposing in such a laid-back, peaceful state. Jason, oblivious to Ben's reaction, let out a soft sigh and shifted slightly, stretching out his legs. The moment seemed to last for just a few seconds, but for Ben, it felt like a quiet, unspoken understanding passing between them, like this was more than just a casual hangout now. The air between them had subtly changed, though neither of them had said a word about it. Ben focused his attention back on the screen, trying to push any stray thoughts from his mind. He wasn't sure why it felt different, but it did. Something in the way Jason was so at ease with himself, even in that moment of sleep, seemed to draw Ben closer to him, not physically, but emotionally. Jason shifted again and mumbled something in his sleep, his muscles relaxing even further. Ben took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the quiet, and decided it was better to just let the moment pass. He wasn't sure what it all meant yet, but for now, he could just let the movie play, let the night unfold, and see where things went from here. Ben tried to focus on the movie, but his mind kept wandering back to Jason. He glanced at him again, watching how the soft light from the TV illuminated the sharp angles of his face. Jason looked so peaceful, his chest rising and falling with steady breaths. The quiet strength he carried even in sleep made Ben feel a strange mix of admiration and vulnerability. Ben shifted on the couch, trying to brush off the thoughts. It's just a movie night. Don't overthink it, he told himself. But there was something about the atmosphere that felt heavier now, something unspoken hanging in the air. Jason stirred slightly, his head tilting to the side as he blinked himself awake. He stretched lazily, his broad shoulders flexing as he let out a low, groggy groan. "Did I fall asleep?" he mumbled, his voice deep and rough from sleep. Ben smiled, a little relieved that Jason had broken the silence. "Yeah, for a bit. Guess the movie wasn't exciting enough for you?" Jason chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck as he sat up straighter. "Sorry about that. Long day, I guess." He glanced over at Ben, noticing the slight flush on his face. "You okay? You look a little red." Ben's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly laughed it off. "Yeah, I'm good. Just warm in here, I think." He reached for his drink, taking a quick sip to give himself something to do. Jason raised an eyebrow, but he didn't press the issue. Instead, he leaned back into the couch, his arm once again draping across the back. "Thanks for hanging out tonight, Ben. I needed this. Feels good to just chill for a bit." Ben nodded, his smile softening. "Yeah, me too. It's been nice." For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of the movie filling the room. But Ben could feel the tension building inside him, an unspoken curiosity about how Jason always managed to seem so effortless, so secure in himself. Before he could overthink it, he spoke up. "Jason, can I ask you something?" Jason turned his head to look at him, his expression calm and open. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Ben hesitated, feeling the weight of the question he wasn't sure he could fully articulate. "How do you, I don't know, stay so grounded? You always seem so comfortable in your own skin. It's impressive." Jason tilted his head, considering the question. "Honestly, I wasn't always like this. Took me a long time to figure out how to just be okay with myself. It's a lot of trial and error, a lot of realizing that what other people think doesn't matter as much as I thought it did." He shrugged, his gaze softening. "I guess I learned to focus on what I can control, being strong, being there for the people I care about, and not letting the rest get to me. Doesn't mean I've got it all figured out, though." Ben nodded, taking in Jason's words. He appreciated the honesty, the vulnerability in what he'd shared. It made him feel a little less alone in his own struggles. "Thanks for sharing that. I think I needed to hear it." Jason smiled, reaching over to give Ben's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "Any time, man. We've all got our stuff to deal with. You're not alone in that." The gesture, simple but genuine, sent a wave of warmth through Ben. He looked at Jason, feeling a deeper connection forming between them.